Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum, dear participants. Welcome to this session of textual study of the Quran. We will be starting off from verse 65 today, and you would recall that we have been studying that part of Surah Al-Imran in which the birth of Jesus and before him, actually, the whole lineage of Jesus has been described and how he was actually brought into the guardianship, and how he spoke in his cradle, and how he would be speaking when he would grow up, as has been predicted in the Quran, and he'll be speaking regarding his own commission as the prophethood, to prophethood. So this initial introduction is now continuing, and the crimes and the charge sheet of the Christians, which has been, of course, as a very important institution, it has been sidelined, and initially we know that this charge sheet was presented in Surah Baqarah before the Jews, and now the Christians are being presented their list of crimes. So we continue with this list by this verse 65. It says, Ya Ahl al-Kitab, lima tuhajjuna fi Ibrahima wa ma unzilat at-Tawrat wal Injil illa min ba'dihi afala taqilun. ها أنتم هؤلاء حاججتم فيما لكم به علم فلم تحاجون فيما ليس لكم به علم الله يعلم وأنتم لا تعلمون ما كان إبراهيم يهوديا ولا نصرانيا ولكن كان حنيفا مسلما وما كان من المشركين. People of the book, why do you argue about Abraham, even though the Torah and the Gospel were revealed after only him? Then do you not understand even this? This argument that they would do, or they would try to make a point of, is that each one of them would say that Abraham was a Jew, and the Christians would say that he was a Christian. So the object or the objective here of the Quran is that people became Jews and Christians after the Torah or after the Gospel and Injil. So how could Abraham be a Jew or a Christian when the sources of Judaism and Christianity, the way they hold it, they did not even exist at that time? So this is like trying to make them realize their huge folly. So it says that why do you argue about Abraham then? Why do you say that he's a Jew or a Christian? Indeed, you are the ones who have argued about things of which you had some knowledge. But must you now argue about that of which you have no knowledge at all? So yes, this is another thing which the Quran has presented, that at times we argue in favor of something and we do have appropriate knowledge. And the people of the book here are being told, especially, that there were things about which they did argue and they had little knowledge about it. So, the point here is not to point out what exactly the things were, but the thing is that whenever you have to argue about something, you must have full knowledge and full awareness of that thing, otherwise it will just fizzle out. And obviously it would be dishonesty as well, that you are arguing or presenting a whole point of view without enough information. And this is an object lesson which the Quran has given the rest of us as well, that when you argue in favor of a thing, when you make a point, then that point must not be in any way left slack by lack of knowledge. So you must prepare yourself fully, otherwise of course you will be guilty of either hijacking the actual view or presenting it in the wrong way. So it says, but must you now argue about that of which you have no knowledge at all? And in reality, God knows all these facts, but you know not. Abraham was neither a Jew nor a Christian. In fact, he was a devoted Muslim, and he was also not from among these idolaters. So this was the thing that they were arguing about. And in this regard, they were being told repeatedly that as far as their contention is concerned, it is absolutely false, because Christianity and Judaism, they were born after the revelation of the Torah and the Injil, and this was, of course, it does not happen in the times of Abraham, and he was totally unaware of that. And the Quran has then asserted that he is basically a devoted Muslim, which means a person who submits himself to God, and the word Hanif actually refers to that devotion, that dedication, and that commitment, that he was neither a Jew nor a Christian. In fact, the Quran has taken one step forward and said that he was not even an idolater, because remember, all these three denominations which existed in the time of the Prophet, they claimed Abraham to be their ancestor. And not only their ancestor, of course, but also a follower of their religion. So the idolaters of Arabia, the Bani Ishmael or the Ishmaelites, they would say that he belongs to the Ishmaelites, and which of course in a way he did, because he was Ishmael's father, but he could not have been called in any way an idolater, because it was much later that idolatry or polytheism crept into them. And of course, he was not a Jew and he was not a Christian. So basically, what we are getting at here is that Abraham, the forefather Abraham, the patriarch Abraham, someone from whom from whom every lineage sprouted, and the Ishmaelites, of course, one branch of his progeny, and the Israelites, which is the other branch, and the Israelites themselves were composed of later on Christians, of course, who were the followers of Jesus, and Jews who were the followers of Moses. So Christians, Jews, and idolaters, all three of them have been addressed, and they are told that in no way can you implicate Abraham to be either one of you. He was a devoted submitter to God, and he was none of these denominations. And then it says, Inna awlan nasi bi Ibrahim alallazina ittaba'uhu wa hazan nabiyyu wallazina amanu wallahu waliyyul mu'minin. So those who followed Abraham are more entitled to ascribe themselves to him. Now this prophet is entitled to this ascription, and those also who have professed faith in him, and God is a companion of these believers. So the assertion which the Quran is making here is that Abraham was neither a Jew, he was nor a Christian, and he also did not belong to the creed of the idolaters, and therefore it is absolutely wrong to in any way ascribe him to either of these. And then the Quran says that if there is anyone who has, who deserves, who is worthy of being ascribed to him, it is Hazan Nabi, this prophet, referring to the fact that Muhammad, peace be upon him, who was now, of course, right there in front of their eyes, and he had already told them that he was someone who had come as a result of the prayer of Abraham. We know in Surah Baqarah, a special prayer made by Abraham for the last prophet, or for a prophet of God who would come and who would purify them and would instruct them in knowledge and in wisdom. So this was what they clearly knew. And so therefore the Quran says that if there is anyone who is eligible to be ascribed to him, it is Prophet Muhammad. So the other thing is Wallahu waliyul mu'mineen, which the Quran says, and God is a companion of these believers, which in other words means that as far as these believers are concerned, they are the ones who must be in every way considered to be the true inheritors, the true you can say people who have really stuck to their task, and they are people who deserve to be called the followers of this prophet. So an important thing that has to be understood here is that the word wali, the way it has been used here, it has many meanings, but one of the most important meaning here is to be called a companion or a friend. And at other instances, the Almighty himself has called himself to be the companions of the believers. So it has said, Allahu waliyul lazina amanu, which means that God is the wali, God is the companion, God is the friend of these believers. So this is something of a great, I would say, inspiration, a means of reassurance that all these people are ones who are to be understood as God's companions. And then it says, وَدَّتْ طَائِفَةٌ مِّنْ أَهْلِ الْكِتَابِ لَوْ يُضِلُّونَكُمْ وَمَا يُضِلُّونَ إِلَّا أَنفُسَهُمْ وَمَا يَشْعُرُونَ يَا أَهْلَ الْكِتَابِ لِمَ تَكْفُرُونَ بِآيَاتِ اللَّهِ وَأَنْتُمْ تَشْهَدُونَ يَا أَهْلَ الْكِتَابِ لِمَ تَلْبِسُونَ الْحَقَّ بِالْبَاطِلِ وَتَكْتُمُونَ الْحَقَّ وَأَنْتُمْ تَعْلَمُونَ. Believers, a group from among these people of the book desires to somehow make you deviate from the right path, and in reality they in this manner are misleading none but themselves, but they do not understand. People of the book, why do you deny God's revelations when you bear witness to them? People of the book, why do you mingle truth and falsehood, and why do you conceal the truth even when you know it? Now this is something which is very very important charge against the people of the book, which the Quran has pointed out here, that they have full knowledge that they stand in front of the last prophet. And in spite of being absolutely sure that he is the one who was prophesied and predicted, his arrival was predicted in the scriptures, and he was now standing right in front of them. It was not just his arrival that was predicted, he was actually, his arrival was predicted by name. He was given this name, Ahmed. And you might like to know this, that even today, in the book of Revelations, which is the last book of the Bible, it is here that you'll find that the prediction of Prophet Muhammad is expressed in Arabic. The words used in Arabic are Yud'a Sadiqan wa Aminan. And it says that he will come, the last prophet will come, and he would be called Sadiq and Amin. So these are the words of the Arabic Bible, and how precise they are. Although the current Bible does not take his name in this way, and there is a big debate on that as well, whether Paraclete or there are words in Greek and other languages which are supposed to have still existed, and they still exist. But then whether that debate is going to, come to any decisive point or not is another thing. But it is an astounding reality that the Arabic Bibles of today, you pick up any Arabic Bible of today and you pick up the last chapter of the Bible, which is the book of Revelations, you will find that Prophet Muhammad, though not mentioned by name, but he's mentioned by these very famous attributes, that he would be called Sadiq and Amin. So the point that the Quran is making against the Jews and the Christians is that they must understand how big a crime and wrongdoing they are committing. There is someone who's standing before them. Now what they are doing is they are mincing their words. And as the Quran says, they are mixing the truth with falsehood. And lema takfuruna bi ayatillah, and they are denying God's revelations, of course referring to these revelations. And they have wa antum tashhadun, and they bear witness to it. And the thing that we have to understand is that the case against the people of the book, which the Quran makes, is that when these people have ended up denying, it is not out of any misunderstanding, it is not out of any lack of information, it is not out of the fact that there is any disinformation. The fact is that they were fully convinced of the truth. They were fully convinced of the truth, and the Quran says, وَأَنْتُمْ تَشْهَدُونَ. They bear witness to it. So this is what makes the whole wrongdoing to be a very grave sin. It is one thing to be left in the lurch by having no knowledge of that, and it's another thing that you have full knowledge of something, you are fully convinced of something, but you deny it. And that is what makes this a very, very grave offense. And at other instances, the Quran has actually pointed out the reason for this grave offense, that why is it that they still insisted that they would not accept someone that they were convinced in their hearts. The Quran says, hasadan min indi anfusihim. It was because of this jealousy that they had. The jealousy that why did the last prophet come from their cousins or the other part of the branch of Abraham's progeny, which is the Ishmaelites. And they could not stand this because they thought that they are the chosen people of God and they have been given a certain responsibility because of this selection. So they could never digest the fact that why would the last prophet come from the Ishmaelites. And this is something which made them deny the truth. It was as open to them, as clear to them as the midday sun. It is as if they saw the sun by their very eyes, but they did not accept the sun is out. So such is the charge sheet of the Quran against them, that they are mincing their words, they are mixing truth with falsehood, they bear witness to the truth and they still deny the truth. And then the Quran says, لَوْ يُضِلُّونَكُمْ. They would desire that the Prophet somehow goes astray. And in reality, in this manner, they are leading none other but themselves astray. وقال طائفة من أهل الكتاب آمنوا بالذي أنزل على الذين آمنوا وجه النهار واكفروا آخره لعلهم يرجعون ولا تؤمنوا إلا لمن تبع دينكم قل إن الهدى هدى الله أن يؤتى أحد مثل ما أوتيتم أو يحاجوكم عند ربكم قل إن الفضل بيد الله يؤتيه من يشاء والله واسع عليم يختص برحمته من يشاء والله ذو الفضل العظيم. And a group of the people of the book says, believe in that which is revealed to believers in the morning and deny it in the evening, so that they may also abandon their faith. So this was one of the pranks or one of the gimmicks that the people of the book, or a part of the people of the book, as the Quran says, قَالَتْ طَائِفَةٌ, one group of these people of the book, what they would do is they would express that, well, okay, it seems that this is absolutely correct, that he is the right prophet. So they would profess faith in him in the morning. And this is what their elders would teach them, that this is how you can lead the masses astray, that you accept faith in the morning and give this impression that, well, yes, this is someone that they were dearly waiting for, and he is the one that they need to profess faith in. But after deliberation, they suddenly realize that he's not the person. So they advise them that you accept faith in a fake way in the morning and then leave it in the evening, and you just renounce your faith. Because when they accept faith, it will give the impression that, well, these people have accepted faith. But when you leave faith in the evening, it will give the impression that they have fully reflected, deliberated, and now they are dismissing it because they think that it's something very false. So it's like a gimmick that they played. They played on the nerves of the masses. They wanted to disillusion the masses against the Prophet, that, well, he is someone on whom we will profess faith, but after some time, when we leave this faith, it will give that signal that we did try, we did accept, but then we realize that he is not the right person. So this is how they would teach their masses what to do, and this they tried, and of course they did not succeed. So it says, Aminu wajhan nahar, unzila allazina aminu wajhan nahar, waghfaru akhirahu. Waghfaru akhirahu, which means that you profess faith in the morning and you leave it in the evening. And then the Quran says, لَعَلَّهُمْ يَرْجِعُونَ, so that they also leave their faith. You leave their faith because this would create that impact on them, that as far as the faith, as far as the Prophet is concerned, he is not a true prophet of God. وَلَا تُؤْمِنُوا إِلَّا لِمَنْ تَبِعَ دِينَكُمْ, and do not listen to anyone except those of your own faith. قُلْ إِنَّ الْهُدَى هُدَى اللَّهِ, tell them, O Prophet, guidance in reality is the guidance of God. So do not listen to anyone, lest such a thing which is bestowed on you is bestowed on others also, or they are able to dispute with you. Now here you might need to look at the translation a little more closely. If you look at this, the Arabic part that the cursor is on, Kul innal huda hudallah, Kul innal huda hudallah. So this is a parenthetical sentence. It is an on-the-spot insertion which normally comments on what has just passed. So the discourse actually is something like this: وَلَا تُؤْمِنُوا إِلَّا لِمَنْ تَبِعَ دِينَكُمْ أَنْ يُؤْتَى أَحَدٌ مِثْلَ مَا أُوتِيتُمْ. So the in-between part, Kul innal huda hudallah, and in the translation you can see these two dashes which tell us that the content within these two dashes is a parenthetical insertion, which means it's like an on-the-spot comment, and the discourse actually connects from after the dash. It starts, it ends on your own faith, and then the next part is, so do not listen to anyone. It's in between, God is just commenting because something grave was said by them, and that grave thing was that as far as the Quran is concerned, it says that La tu'minu illa liman tabi'a dinakum, that do not follow anyone except the one who follows your own religion. So it was like an on-the-spot comment to cut them to size and to tell them that, well, true guidance is the guidance of God. Don't think that this is something else. So now it says, أَن يُؤْتَى أَحَدٌ مِثْلَ مَا أُوتِيتُمْ أَوْ يُحَاجُّكُمْ عِنْدَ رَبِّكُمْ. So do not listen to anyone, lest such a thing which is bestowed on you is bestowed on others also, or they are able to dispute with you in your Lord's presence. So this is what is being said here, that if you start talking to them and if you start accepting them, of course, meaning the Ishmaelites, then this will give them an argument in favor of their own selves, which give the Ishmaelites that, look, these people did accept, but now they are backing out. So this is a conversation which the people of the book were having amongst themselves, that do not accept faith. Accept those who follow you. You only follow those who follow you, because if you do so and you talk to them and you accept them a bit, then this will give them an argument against you. And as the Quran says, that they will argue before God, or yuhajjukum inda rabbikum, or if you do so it might also give them the same status as you have. So remember, the Israelites were given the status of being the witness of the truth, and they were now fearing that if something of a compromise is struck, or if they accept the Prophet, so this position of bearers of witness to the truth, which is Shuhada al-Nas, would be shifted from them to the Ishmaelites. So this is how they instructed their masses that they must not do so. But in reality, God says, Innal fadla biyadillah. Indeed, blessing and grace is in the hands of God. Yu'tihi man yasha, wallahu wasiyun alim. He bestows it on whomsoever He wills. Whomsoever He wills. Again, when we talk about God's will, of course, His will and His choice is based on wisdom. It's not that He is just going to do it in a haphazard way. The way this is expressed here, and I have pointed out this before also, then when it is said that God does this and He gives it to whomsoever He wants, it does not mean that He does so out of His whims. Of course, He follows the law. What it actually expresses is that no one can stop God from implementing His will. So if He's going to do, He's going to give to whomsoever He wants. It is actually implying that these idolaters, they're angels whom they consider to be daughters of God and to be their intercessors or interceders, they'll not be able to in any way hold off God in any way. He will implement His will. No one can stop Him. That is what this word means, that He will do it and no one is able to stop Him. He will give it to anyone He wants to. Wallahu wasiyun alim. He is munificent and all-knowing. Yakhtassu bi rahmatihi man yasha, which means that He is merciful to whom He chooses. Wallahu zul fadlil azim, and God is greatly exalted. So, yakhtassu bi rahmatihi man yasha, again it means that His mercy is confined to those whom He chooses that they deserve mercy. So remember, mercy is granted to those who deserve mercy, and those who do not deserve this mercy, they don't receive mercy. So this verse should not be in any way any means of confusion or misconception, that basically what God wants is that He chooses people who are deserving of that mercy, and then He has that mercy and affection delivered to them. So before we go on to the next verses, and if you have any questions regarding what we have studied until now, please raise them.
Dr. Saab, just a comment. When you are reciting these ayahs, it's looked like most of the Muslim are similar acting like this. I think so. Is it correct?
Well, it depends on which particular verse you are referring to. I mean, we have read quite a few of them. If you are referring to any specific ones amongst them, but in general, yes, the attitude of the Muslims is now quite similar to what the people of the book did to themselves, and the Prophet himself has also pointed out that the way they will behave, you will behave, very closely to them. So that is more of a general comment. But as you can see that here, they are using special planning or gimmicks to unsettle the Prophet and his followers. For example, as we've just read, that they would ask their followers to profess faith in the morning, give it a little time, and then back away, giving the impression that it's not worth being a part of. So these are different ploys that they invented, and they succeeded in some of them and did not in others. So, but in general, yes, you're partly correct that the behavior of Muslims today is quite similar to the Israelites of those times.
Assalamu alaikum, sir. Sir, can you just little bit more explain this ayah, Kul innal huda hudalallah?
Yes. So it means that actually true guidance is God guidance. True guidance is God's guidance. That is what it means. Kul innal huda, and the Prophet, you see, if you let me just open that part before you so that you can see how it is connected. So if you have the verse in front of you, it says, La tu'minu illa liman tabi'a dinakum. This basically is a comment on this part. So the translation is that do not follow those except who are on your own faith. La tu'minu illa liman tabi'a dinakum. Only follow those who are on your own religion. Now this is being negated by the Almighty forthwith, immediately, because you see, they said that guidance belongs to us, and you will only follow those people who follow your religion. I mean, it's like saying that guidance is actually a monopoly of ours. So this is forthwith, immediately commented upon by the Almighty by the words, Innal huda hudallah. That's, O Prophet, tell them, real guidance is God's guidance. It's not the guidance that they are talking about. It's not that they are correct. So it's like God immediately correcting them that if you claim that you have guidance alone, then this is not correct because you have deviated from guidance and true guidance belongs to God. Innal huda hudallah. So, وَمِنْ أَهْلِ الْكِتَابِ مَنْ إِنْ تَأْمَنْهُ بِقِنْطَارٍ يُؤَدِّيهِ إِلَيْكَ وَمِنْهُمْ مَنْ إِنْ تَأْمَنْهُ بِدِينَارٍ لَا يُؤَدِّيهِ إِلَيْكَ إِلَّا مَا دُمْتَ عَلَيْهِ قَائِمًا. You expect from them that in the matter of your prophet they will act justly, and on the contrary the situation is that among the people of the book there are those also who, if you trust them with a heap of wealth, will return it to you intact. And then it says, and there are others among them also, who, if you entrust them with a single dinar, will not hand it back unless you forcefully demand it from them. So now the Quran is commenting on the fact that as far as the honesty and trust of these people of the book is concerned, they say that a major part of these people of the book, they consist of people who are dishonest, and they are such that if you give them a treasure, as the Quran says, and you entrust them with a heap of wealth and you would like them to be returned. So it says that the people of the book, there are those if you trust with a heap of wealth will return it to you intact. So if that heap of treasure is given to someone, so honest they are that they will return it to you. But then amongst them there are others who cannot be trusted for even a small amount, like a dinar. Even a small amount cannot be given to them because they are not going to give it back to you unless, of course, they say that you really stand on them and you really forcefully say that, well, you had to owe me this. So the point that the Quran is making is that these people have gone far astray in their honesty, and you cannot expect them to be honest in the matter of your prophet. And then the Quran actually moves on and makes another case against them by the words, ذَلِكَ بِأَنَّهُمْ قَالُوا لَيْسَ عَلَيْنَا فِي الْأُمِّيِّينَ سَبِيلٌ, which means that this is because they have said, we shall not be held blameworthy in the matter of these unlettered people. This means that as far as these unlettered people are concerned, we can do anything. We can, if we want, we can be dishonest to them, because these unlettered people, they do not belong to us. They belong to they're non-Jews. So, laysa alayna fil ummiyina sabil would mean that we can be dishonest to them. They justify the dishonesty because they say that honesty is something which as a lot they owe to their own lot. So, other people who are their enemies, they can easily be dishonest to them. And the Quran has very, very emphatically said that this is something that has really got into them. This is that their arrogance. They think that they are superior, they can be honest to their own selves, but they can be dishonest to other people, especially these idolaters, as the Quran says, Laysa alayna fil ummiyina sabil, that as far as these idolaters are concerned, we will not be held accountable for them because we are not concerned about them, because guidance belongs to us. Yes, we must be honest amongst ourselves. We must be truthful and forbearing amongst our own lot, but not for the rest. And this is what the Quran has said is one of their grave crimes. And he says, وَيَقُولُونَ عَلَى اللَّهِ الْكَذِبَ وَيَقُولُونَ عَلَى اللَّهِ الْكَذِبَ وَهُمْ يَعْلَمُونَ. And it is a fact that they deliberately say of God what is untrue. So again, when they say this, that they will not be held accountable in the case of the unlettered or these Bani Ismail, if they are if they are not truthful to them, they say this is something which they have been divinely told. But the Quran says that this is a lie that they are fabricating, because they say this on the authority of God, whereas God has never said this to him. He has not made this differentiation that they can have a different attitude with non-Israelites. And then the Quran says what makes this a grave offense is وَهُمْ يَعْلَمُونَ. They know this very well. They are fully aware of it. And then بَلَا مَنْ أَوْفَ بِأَهْدِهِ وَاتَّقَى. Indeed, why not? The way of God only is that he who keeps his covenant with him and remains pious is liked by him, because God loves the pious. بَلَا مَنْ أَوْفَ بِأَهْدِهِ وَاتَّقَى. He who keeps God's covenant with him and remains pious is liked by him, because God loves the pious. Once again, remember in this passage we have said that there are honest people also among the people of the book. If you entrust them with a whole heap of treasure, they'll return it to you. So it is such people about whom we can say that they were the ones who accepted faith. They were the ones who accepted faith in the last prophet. They were honest people. They were waiting for his arrival, and when he arrived, they leapt to him and they accepted him, and they regarded him to be the last prophet of God. And it is about these that the Quran says that those who keep their covenant, Bala man awfa bi ahdihi wattaqa. Then why not people who keep their covenant? Of course, the covenant being the covenant about the last prophet. This covenant has been mentioned at a number of instances in the Quran, is referred to it in the Bible also, although not in these, because we don't have the original script of the Bible, we don't have its original words preserved, but even the translations, they do point very, very sharply to the fact that the last prophet, they were taken this covenant from about him, that they will honor the last prophet. But now when the time has come, they have been its worst deniers, his worst deniers, and the first ones to reject him. But as I said, if you have time, do read up the last book of the Bible, the book of Revelations. It's available in every language, but the Arabic is so meaningful when it says Yud'a Sadiqan wa Amina, that messenger would be called, or the last person would be called Sadiq and Amin, and he cannot be anyone. He is unmistakably the Prophet himself. So that is why the Quran says that those who honor their covenant of the last Prophet and are ones who are pious, they are liked by God. فَإِنَّ اللَّهَ يُحِبُّ الْمُتَّقِينَ, because God is one who likes the pious. إِنَّ الَّذِينَ يَشْتَرُونَ بِأَهْدِ اللَّهِ وَأَيْمَانِهِمْ ثَمَنًا قَلِيلًا أُولَٰئِكَ لَا خَلَاقَ لَهُمْ فِي الْآخِرَةِ وَلَا يُكَلِّمُهُمُ اللَّهُ وَلَا يَنْظُرُ إِلَيْهِمْ يَوْمَ الْقِيَامَةِ وَلَا يُزَكِّيهِمْ وَلَهُمْ عَذَابٌ أَلِيمٌ. On the other hand, those who sell the covenant of God and their own oaths for a trivial price have no share in the world to come, and God shall neither speak to them nor look at them with favor, nor purify them from their sins on the day of judgment. In fact, a grievous punishment awaits them there. So, of course, this is a figure of speech when it says that you sell the covenant of God and their own oaths for a trivial price, which means that you dishonor them. Obviously, you don't sell the covenant or you don't sell your oath. What you are doing is that you are dishonoring them. You are not fulfilling your pledge towards the Almighty, and that too for a trivial price. And what is that trivial price? Because it's something that will satisfy their ego, and that ego is that why did a prophet of God come from another ancestry? He should have come from our own ancestry. So they are satisfying. They have this jealousy for the people in whom the prophet was born, and this is a trivial price. In fact, if they think that the real contribution of the last prophet has nothing to do with the lineage. How can the lineage be in any way effective in saving people or salvaging them in any way? The real thing is the guidance which he has brought. The real thing is the way in which he has delivered this guidance. He suffered for people. He made them, he made them tolerate and put up the persecution that was let loose by the Quraysh in his times. And in the years that he spent, 12 or 13 years in Mecca, this was a time in which Muslims were persecuted to the ultimate extent. We know what Bilal had to go through. We know what Ammar ibn Yasir had to go through. We know so many other people had to even migrate to Abyssinia. So this was what is the Quran pointing out, that look at the Prophet who has come to them and look at what they are doing. Instead of accepting him, they are paying a very paltry price. They think that because he's not come out of our own selves, we are not going to accept him. And this is the biggest sin that they have committed. And the Quran says that such is this great sin, that God shall neither speak to them nor look at them with favor. La ulaika la khalaqa lahum fil akhirati wa la yukallimuhum Allahu yawm al-qiyamah, that they will have no share in the world to come. Such is their misfortune, that they'll have no share in the world to come. God is not going to speak to them in any way. Of course, speak to them means that he is not going to be in any way favorable to them. They will not have his affection in any way, nor look upon them with any favor, nor will He purify them from their sin, which means that, of course, we know that they are some part of our sins. They can be given up, they can be atoned for, they can be repented from through repentance and forgiveness. But God says that they will not even be given that chance because of the heinous and grave crimes that they committed. And it says, وَلَهُمْ azabun alim, and there's a grievous punishment which awaits them there. So not only in this world will they be humbled and humiliated, a bigger torment and a bigger humiliation awaits them in the hereafter. وَإِنَّ مِنْهُمْ لَفَرِيقًا يَلْوُونَ أَلْسِنَتَهُمْ بِالْكِتَابِ لِتَحْسَبُوهُ مِنَ الْكِتَابِ وَمَا هُوَ مِنَ الْكِتَابِ وَيَقُولُونَ هُوَ مِنْ عِنْدِ اللَّهِ وَمَا هُوَ مِنْ عِنْدِ اللَّهِ وَيَقُولُونَ عَلَى اللَّهِ الْكَذِبَ وَهُمْ يَعْلَمُونَ. And there are those among them also that while reading the book of God twist their tongues in such a way that you may think that whenever they are reading, whatever they are reading is precisely a statement from the book, whereas it is not a statement from the book, and they say this is from God, whereas it is not from God, and in this manner they deliberately ascribe falsehood to God. So this is one of their, another of their crimes that is being mentioned here, that what they would do is they would twist their tongue and pronounce a word in a way that would be different from its actual pronunciation, and in this way they would say that this changed pronunciation is what God has actually revealed, whereas of course it was not be the case, and that is why the Quran says that وَمَا هُوَ مِنَ الْكِتَابِ, it's not from the book. And then they would further say وَيَقُولُونَ هُوَ مِنْ عِنْدِ اللَّهِ, it is from God, and the Quran comments وَمَا هُوَ مِنْ عِنْدِ اللَّهِ, it's not from God, it is from yourselves. So they would twist certain words and pronounce them in a way that would distort them. And a very prominent example that I can give you in this regard is the pronunciation of the word marwa. So if you look at in the Torah, it's not pronounced marwa the way it is pronounced in the Quran. So marwa was, the hill or the hillock on which Abraham had laid Ismail down for sacrifice, for slaughter. So in order to cut off the advent of Abraham from the land of Arabia, they shifted all these sites to Jerusalem. And they said that this is a place, Moriah or Marwa, whatever they would call it, and they would change its name to Moriah, Mora, and we have a number of pronunciations. And they would say that this is actually not in Arabia, but it is in Jerusalem, in the land of Palestine, because they wanted that the last prophet, about whom this prediction has been made by Prophet Abraham, should in no way materialize for the last prophet, and they wanted that everything that is spoken of the last prophet should actually, instead of finding its presence in Arabia, should find its presence in Jerusalem, so that they could easily say that they are the custodians and they are the ones who are being implied by this final prediction. So this is one of the gravest crimes which the Quran has held against them, that they have tried to sever the connection of Abraham with the land of Arabia. Remember, it was in the land of Arabia where he had built the house of God, where he had prayed for the arrival of the last prophet, and where from history we know that he had settled his progeny. He had settled Ishmael here, and he had settled Isaac, the younger son, in Jerusalem. And we know this as a reference from the Quran and from established history as well. But they just tried to distort this history because they knew that if this connection remains, then they in no way can stop this prediction of the last prophet to be true. And that is how the Quran is said, that they try to ascribe falsehood to God, and they say that this is from God, and the Quran says وَمَا هُوَ مِنْ عِنْدِ اللَّهِ, it's not from God, it's from their own selves, and وَهُمْ يَعْلَمُونَ, and they very well know this. This is not something that they don't know, they very well know of this. So مَا كَانَ لِبَشَرٍ أَنْ يُؤْتِيَهُ اللَّهُ الْكِتَابَ وَالْحُكْمَ وَالنُّبُوَّةَ ثم يقول للناس كونوا عبادا لي من دون الله ولكن كونوا ربانيين بما كنتم تعلمون الكتاب وبما كنتم تدرسون ولا يأمركم أن تتخذوا الملائكة والنبيين أربابا أيأمركم بالكفر بعد إذ أنتم مسلمون. Then not only this, they also forge a lie on the Prophet of God and do not even think that it is not befitting for a human being to whom the Almighty gives His book and the ability to decide and carry out the responsibilities of prophethood according to it. Then he should say to people, serve me instead of God. No, in fact, he will only say, people, be devoted servants of God. because you study and teach the book of God. So the point that is being made here by the Quran is that it does not behoove a human being. It absolutely is unbefitting. It cannot happen that a human being, as we can see, it's the Prophet which is being pointed out here, that he be given a book of God, wal hukm, and he is also someone who is given the authority and the ability to decide matters and to carry out the responsibilities of prophethood, and he should come and say, Kunu ibadalli, you become my servant, so you start serving me. This can never happen. How can this happen? Instead, he will tell people to become servants of God, to become people who acknowledge God, who live in servitude to God, not in servitude to the Prophet himself. And that is why they say that you should know that وَلَا يَأْمُرَكُمْ أَن تَتَّخِذُوا الْمَلَائِكَةَ وَالنَّبِيِّينَ أَرْبَابًا. No one will ask you to make the angels and the prophets as your God. So as far as these angels and prophets are concerned, you start making them to be superhumans, and you regard them to be deities or close to them, and you think that they are going to intercede for you, but they have never ever said this for themselves. This is you who ascribe this to them, isn't so? It is you who do so. So none of them would make you ever do so. So nor will he ask you to make the angels and the prophets as your God. So no prophet will ever do that. It is something that you yourself are guilty of doing. And then he says, أَيَأْمُرُكُمْ بِالْكُفْرِ بَعْدَ إِذْ أَنْتُمْ مُسْلِمُونَ. Will he urge you to commit disbelief once you have become Muslim? So it's like making this appeal that how can a prophet of God ask people to serve him and he become a prophet, he become God himself, referring of course to this phenomenon of Jesus being elevated to the status of a deity. So he says that how can a prophet himself say this when he himself is subservient to God? It is only you who can do it. This is a prophet can never do it, and this is something that you ascribe to him. If you ascribe divinity to Jesus, then this is something that you have invented. It is not he himself who ever said that to you. وَإِذْ أَخَذَ اللَّهُ مِيثَاقَ النَّبِيِّينَ لَمَا آتَيْتُكُم مِّن كِتَابٍ وَحِكْمَةٍ ثُمَّ جَاءَكُمْ رَسُولٌ مُصَدِّقٌ لِّمَا مَعَكُمْ لِتُؤْمِنُنَّ بِهِ وَلَتَنصُرُنَّهُ قَالَ أَأَقْرَرْتُمْ وَأَخَذْتُمْ عَلَى ذَلِكُمْ إِصْرِي قَالُوا أَقْرَرْنَا قَالَ فَاشْهَدُوا وَأَنَا مَعَكُمْ مِنَ الشَّاهِدِينَ فَمَنْ تَوَلَّى بَعْدَ ذَلِكَ فَأُولَٰئِكَ هُمُ الْفَاسِقُونَ. And remind them when God took a covenant from them about the prophets. The law and wisdom which I have given to you, then if a messenger comes forth in confirmation of what is before you, you shall necessarily profess faith in him and necessarily support him. After this he asked, do you agree to this and acknowledge the responsibility of my covenant on it? They replied, we agree to it. He said, then bear witness, and I also bear witness with you. He said, then after this, those who turn away from this covenant, it is they who are the insolent. So once again, if you look at the context of this verse and the context of the Quran, you'll find out that the mithaq or the covenant referred to here, of course, is the same covenant that we have been discussing, the covenant to obey the last prophet. As you can see clearly from the words, summa ja'akum rasulum. Yani, if you are taking this covenant that if a prophet comes to you, if someone comes to you with kitab and hikmah, and regarding the hikmah that was given to you, the law and the wisdom which I have given to you, then if a messenger comes to you with the same message as the law and the wisdom that was given to previous, and you are required to profess faith in him, the Quran says, لَتُؤْمِنُنَّ بِهِ لَتَنْصُرُنَّهُ. Would you accept that? And lo and behold, they replied, قَالَ أَقْرَرْنَا. We do. We أَقْرَرْتُمْ وَأَخَذْتُمْ عَلَى ذَلِكُمْ إِصْرِي. They replied, أَقْرَرْنَا. Yes, we do accept. So this is a reference to what would generally happen in the times of Moses when the Torah would be given or revealed part by part. He would call the followers. He would say that these are the verses that I have revealed, that have been revealed to me, and he would read them out, and he would take a pledge from them. And you can see how clearly the pledge is mentioned here, that this is the pledge that was taken about the arrival of the last prophet. And they said that yes, we do agree. Qala fashhadu, and then he said that if you do so, then bear witness, and I also bear witness to you. Ana ma'akum min ash-shahidin. Faman tawalla ba'da zalika. Then after this, those who turn away from this covenant, it is they who are the insolent. So the point that Quran is repeatedly making in these last few verses and the earlier ones as well, is that the people of the book, they were awaiting the arrival of the last prophet. He was not someone unintroduced. He was not someone who came as a surprise to them. They very well knew that he is going to come. They had given their word that when he will come, remember the word which says is, "Aqrartum," do you accept this? "Akhaztum ala zalikum isri," do you accept that you will support him? They said yes. So this is what the Quran is continuously reminding them of, that when this covenant was taken from you, you said that yes, we will honor it. But when the time came to honor it, and the time was when the last prophet did come, you rejected him. So this is the charge sheet in one word which the Quran has presented in both these surahs. Of course, there are a number of details that we have studied in this surah and in the previous surah. But they all boil down to one statement, and that is that they did not accept the last prophet even after being convinced of his truthfulness, his veracity. And the thing that impelled them, that made them reject the last prophet was, as I said, what the Quran has said, hasadan min indi anfusihim, it was that jealousy, and they did not want the last prophet from some other lineage. So I'm going to stop here for today's lesson, inshallah, and we'll be continuing our literal and idiomatic translation in our next session. And if you have now any questions regarding the passage that we have studied today, as well as after that any other non-topic questions, we can take them.
You know, you mentioned the Sadiq and Amin, that's been mentioned in the Quran, in the Bible. But what about Muhammadam in the Song of Solomon? Is that also a reference to Prophet Muhammad?
Yes, that is also a song of reference to him. Although they disputed the Song of Songs, or Ghazlul Ghazlat, as it is said, the Song of Solomon, he is mentioned there, and work has been done on this prophecy. One of our very revered and esteemed scholars of our institute, Abdul Sattar Ghori, he passed away about a decade ago. So he's worked on this prophecy, and he's shown how the words of Solomon, they are pinpointedly referring to Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And there are other words as well in the Injil of today and in the Torah as well. And work has been done on these on the predictions of the arrival of the last prophet. Even in Hindu scriptures, you'll find him being mentioned. So it seems that all scriptures, he was mentioned, and the way he was mentioned was in a way that no one could be mistaken that when he comes, then they should have any confusion whether he is the same person or not.
Okay. And you know, the mention of Marwa you mentioned, what about the Bakka in Psalms 84? Is that also Makkah, or is that, because they also claim that is not it's in Jerusalem also?
Of course, that is also one part of they would try to change a lot of areas, they would change a lot of localities, and they would shift all these localities to Jerusalem. And this is also another fact, that they said that the son who Abraham had offered for sacrifice was Isaac, and this was done in Jerusalem. So you see, all those signposts which lead to the last prophet of God in Arabia were one by one, they were divested of their originality, and all those signposts were transferred from Arabia to Jerusalem. So that is why you'll find that they say that it was Isaac who was sacrificed and not Ishmael.
So we are to assume that the verses you've read today of the Christians denying it is reference to verses like these, the Psalms one and the Solomon one and the...
Yes, there are. I mean, you'll find a number of these. I mean, if you look up any good book on the, I can give you some references on the prophecies of the arrival of Prophet Muhammad, because a lot of scholars have done work on this. You'll find how scholars have shown in Syriac, in Aramaic, and in Hebrew languages, the current word which is being used for Prophet Muhammad, Parakletos, which is the Greek word, how it actually refers and it translates to Ahmed. And then the Quran or another word which is called munhamanna, that's another word which is also referred to. And you'll find that the Quran in Surah Saf says that his name Ahmed, actually, Ismuhu Ahmed, the word Ahmed was mentioned in these scriptures. So although we don't have them in its original language, but whatever language we have them, we have words which are very close to that word, which of course means it's a translation.
Okay. Thank you for that, Dr. Saleem. Shabana Ansari, please unmute your mic and ask your question.
Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum assalam.
डॉक्टर साहब, जैसे अभी आपने बताया कि मरवा वो जगह थी जहां पर हजरत इब्राहिम ने हजरत इस्माइल की कुर्बानी की थी, लेकिन आमतौर पे हम लोगों को या जनरली जो हमारी आवाम है या हमें जो सीरत में पढ़ाया जाता है या स्कूल की किताबों में भी, तो वो उसका ताल्लुक जो है हजरत हाजरा से सफा और मरवा के ताल्लुक को जोड़ा जाता है।
हम्म,
वो
हम्म,
वहां 7 चक्कर लगाए थे उन्होंने नन्हे इस्माइल के लिए, पानी के लिए।
हम्म,
तो क्या ये उसी डिस्टॉर्शन का हिस्सा है कि हजरत इब्राहिम से उस ताल्लुक को बिल्कुल खत्म कर दिया गया है?
correct.
या
So basically, this is a narrative that has infiltrated into our books, but it has come from the Israelites, and that is why it is an Israeli tradition, in which basically you'll find that there was this enmity, which is supposedly between Hagar and Sarah, and it was because of this enmity, because of this, you can say, certain elements of hate and had cropped in the mind of Sarah, and she wanted herself to be distanced from Hagar. And it is said that that is why Abraham actually transported both of his wives in one journey. So he left Hagar with Ishmael at one place, and then he went off to Jerusalem with Sarah, and he left Sarah and Isaac there. But the Quran actually totally negates this and says that when Ishmael and Isaac arrived there, Isaac had already been born, and we know that Isaac was about 10 or 15 years younger to Ishmael. So Ishmael could not have been an infant. He could not have been an infant at that time. He could not have been a 6 months old baby, because Isaac had already been born. So this is what Surah Safat tells us, that basically and also Surah Ibrahim, where it is said that the Almighty had asked Abraham to settle his progeny in the barren land of Mecca, and at that time Abraham and Ishmael and Isaac both had been born. And if that is the case, because there is a difference of 14 to 15 years between the two, so how could he have been an infant at that time? He was a boy who was well over in his teens at that time. So basically, this is a narrative which is totally against the Quran, against history as well. And if you'd like to have more details, I have written and lectured on this, specifically this narrative. You'll find it on my new YouTube channel, and also find it as an article, which gives you even more details at how you'll find a very similar account in the Talmud, which of course a very important book of Judaism, and how certain Jewish history books corroborate the account that we now find in our books of Hadith.
और जमजम का ताल्लुक भी उन्हीं से जोड़ा है कि जैसे वो उनके पैरों से निकला था, ये
Yes,
भी मतलब रियलिटी
correct.
तो नहीं है?
That is also something which has been erroneously associated and ascribed to him, because we know that this never happened. I mean, it's not that he was rubbing his ankles on the ground and hence Zamzam sprouted. Zamzam existed much before that. It is a fountain that is from much before. And you'll find that, as I said, this whole narrative seems to be a fabrication. It seems to be a distortion of actual facts. I mean, it's not entirely correct, because you see, today the Jews themselves are divided into a number of sects, and I would say the Jews which belong to the Orthodox Judaism, who follow Orthodox Judaism, have very similar views. So they are still waiting for a Messiah. They did not accept Jesus to be that Messiah. They did not accept Muhammad to be that Messiah. They denied both of them, and they said that the Messiah that they are being promised is yet to come, and he is going to build the third temple. And that is why today, we have this whole movement going on in Jerusalem, in Palestine, in which they would like to build that temple, and they would like to empty that area from all other religions, and they would like Judaism to be there. So this whole branch of Zionism, in which their Jewish homeland was something which was very, cherished for them. It was in the wake of this that after World War I, as a result of the Balfour Declaration, we know that this homeland was promised to them. And slowly and gradually, they, according to their own narrative, they are waiting for their Messiah. So you see, there are two reports about that which are famous. One of them is that he is going to come once the region is emptied from all other religions, and then he will build the third temple. And another report is, yes, the Messiah.
Who will be the Messiah?
They are waiting for him. They are waiting for the Messiah, because they think that the Messiah that they are being promised has yet to come. Remember, according to the Quran, that Messiah was Jesus, and he has already come. But because of certain reasons, we know that they did not accept Jesus, they denied him, they denied Muhammad, and because they denied both of these prophets, they are waiting that the Messiah that they're being promised of is yet to come. So the second point of view about them is that he will actually come only when the building of the third temple has started, and then he will go on to complete it. So this is what their view is. But there are a number of, I would say, diversions also. But this is what the view generally is of a good sizable majority.
So, no, Dr. My question is, what would be our attitude towards the present Jews?
I mean, whether they are Jews or Christians or anyone, I think our attitude towards all non-Muslims has to be friendly, has to be appreciative of their point of view, to be empathetic to them, and to make friends with them, and to deal with them in a humanistic way. I don't see any reason for any debate. I mean, yes, there could be discussion, there could be debate, but being hating them, or in any way not liking them, that is not the right way in any sense.
So they're still, after reading the Quran, they are still having the same belief system?
Of course.
Because you see now, I mean, I'm not sure about the Jews, but I do think it is very similar. But regarding the Christians, we know that in 1967 there was this famous church gathering of all these leaders of Christendom, and they accepted that we no longer hold to our previous assertion that Muhammad is a false prophet, because remember, they regarded Muhammad to be a false prophet and an impostor for a very long time. So, but in the late 1960s, they changed this stance, and they said that now we accept him as a prophet of God, but he is only for the Muslims. So they accepted him to be God's prophet. So now, if you ask the Christian Orthodoxy, if you ask the Pope, or even the Protestants, they'll say that they accept Muhammad as a prophet of God, but he's a prophet who is sent to the Muslims. And I mean, just as Jesus is a prophet to the Christians, so Muhammad is a prophet for the Muslims.
Thank you for that, Apple iPhone. Naushad Shafkat, please unmute your mic and ask your question.
Assalamu alaikum, Dr. Saab. Dr. Saab, just trying to recollect that you did a very good series on the fact that the name Muhammad, how it transformed from Aramaic, and I think Maududi Saab has done some singular work on that.
Right.
Is that correct?
Yes, that is correct. So that thank you for reminding me of that. So if anyone would like to look up what exactly the changes that happened, so I would advise him to look up Ustaz Abul Ala Maududi's tafsir of Surah Saf. Surah Saf is the 61st surah of the Quran and verse number 9. So where this prediction is mentioned, Ismuhu Muhammad, the way it has been mentioned in the Quran. So he has actually given a very good and a detailed reference, and he has shown how in the Gospel of Barnabas, who was one of Jesus' disciples also, how differently all these facts have been collated. And he has also given you a whole route through which you can see that the word Ahmed, the way the Quran claims it to still exist, it still exists in the Bible, though in a slightly different way. So you could well do that. And when I was discussing this in one of my lectures, I think it was Hadith Studies series or something like that, if I recall correctly. So I also gave a detailed introduction to how the word Ahmad originally, how it came to be, and how it was in the Bible, and what are some of the other opinions in this regard.
Yes, Dr. Saab, you gave a complete lecture on that. And in 1967, you are referring to the Christian Ecumenical Council that accepted the Prophet.
Yes, correct. Christian Ecumenical Council. That is correct.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you for that wonderful question. Noshaba Wasim, please unmute your mic and ask your question.
Assalamu alaikum. Sir, my question is not direct. It's indirect with the jealousy, the topic which we lit. So even like we are Muslim and we know jealousy is not a good thing, but sometimes we feel jealousy. So how we can overcome that?
So that's more of a general question. I think as far as overcoming jealousy is concerned, I think it arises because of this lack of, it's this feeling of inferiority, that you don't have something in your own self, and you see that the same thing, that vacuum that you have in your own self in some other person. So I think one of the ways to circumvent this, to be an antidote to jealousy, is that always be proud of your own skill set. So if you look at your own self, you'll find that God has blessed you with some ability or the other. It's just a question of discovering it. So at times, people who have low self-esteem, or people who think that they are good for nothing and they don't have anything, and there are other people who are blessed, they make this summarily, I would say rather summarily, they make this assumption that God has not been kind to them, and they are not blessed. So I think that in my understanding, in my study, I think every single human being who the Almighty has created has some ability or the other. It could be different, it could be absolutely different from the other, but it's just a question of discovering that. If you are able to discover your inner aptitude and your inner ability, and you're also able to develop that, you'll start taking pride in your own self. I mean, I am not talking about pride in the sense that you become proud and you start indulging in self-praise, but what I'm saying is that it gives you confidence. It gives you that you too have been blessed with something, although it might be different from another person. So this is how I think jealousy can be. This is one way. I mean, there are other ways as well, but one way to curb this jealousy is to be proud of your own skill set. And if you have not discovered your skill set as yet, you must get about discovering that, because every person has been blessed with some skills or the other.
Yes, Assalamu alaikum, Dr. Saleem. Just a quick question that you referred to, the Gospel of Barnabas. I wasn't sure, because then most of the Christian scholars these days don't deem it as authentic. They say it is from the 15th to the 16th century. I wanted to hear your thoughts, where Muslims really do quote it quite a bit. Right.
So what I say is that this is not something that's going to convince them, but what you might know is that if there is an account which exists by a disciple of Jesus, and that account is absolutely in conformity with the Quran, then actually it is something of a reassurance to Muslims that, well, at least there was this account, there still exists. The Christians might dispute it, but there must be some missing link, because if this account is correct, and they think that it's just from the 16th century, but whereas it actually should go way back to Jesus himself, because what it describes, if you have time, do read this gospel. You'll be surprised when you read through this that whatever it says is so close to the account of the Quran that, it could not have been any other author which could have authored this account in the absence of the Quran. So that the point that I'm making is that it's not for the purpose of convincing the Christians or telling them that this account must be read. It is for your own benefit and knowledge, that if you would like that there is something outside of the Quran that is in corroboration with the Quran, and it's very likely to be authentic as well, although, as I said, it has its distributed origin, then you'll get to know how still today, even today, God has preserved, as far as he is concerned, the correct version of the truth, other than the Quran.
So I have a question. So, when we talk about the Quran, and when we translate it, obviously it's lost in translation. A lot of it is lost in translation. It's the same for Bible and Torah, when you say it doesn't exist in the right language, and that's why all the misunderstandings?
I think for the Quran, we have the original text. Any person who is a connoisseur of the text, he can compare the translation with the text and see for himself or herself. But you see, in the case of the previous scriptures, we don't have the original language. So whatever translations we have, we're just going to make a guesswork out of it. And what happens is that more often than not, translators who come later, they make their own correction to the translation of the previous generations, because they think that it should have been this, and our previous generations have understood this, and whereas it should have been this. So you see, they assume that the previous generations might have gone wrong because the word has, multiple meanings, and maybe this is more appropriate. So what happens is that every coming generation tries to correct the previous generation's translations by trying to make sense of what actually happened. So it's like a big amount of guesswork, and this is not the only thing that has happened. Another thing that has happened with the Bible is that history has infiltrated into the text as well. I mean, you'll find, I mean, you can easily see in the New Testament that if it was revealed to Jesus, then the way it was revealed to Jesus, it could not have incorporated history the way it has been narrated in these Gospels. So that is why it has prompted many scholars to publish what I've often referred to you as the red letter Bible, in which the words of Jesus have been separated from other historical anecdotes. So what I'm trying to say here is that a lot of historical material has infiltrated in the text, and because you don't know what the original text was, so you're not able to make out which part of the translation is the translation and which part is the historical element. It's like saying that when you write a tafsir or when you make a translation, there are certain annotations. But if you don't know the text, the original text, so what happens is that the translation and the annotations, the translation and the tafsir part, it gets mingled with one another, and still more things are added to it when people would comment that, well, this is of this area or this is of this era, and then opinions of people which were perhaps originally written on the sidelines or in the columns, they also became part of the main text. So these are basically all those things that have arisen because we don't have that original text from which we can compare the translation.
But then, Dr. Saleem, right now, the lady who mentioned about the fountain of Zamzam, that is something that is taught in Pakistan. So that really confuses me, because actually I mentioned that to my own kids the other day. I did not know it not to be the truth. So how does one separate that?
I mean, this. No, it's not in Pakistan, of course. It's in Arabia. But the thing is that what she has just pointed out is that there is.
I'm saying the story that Ismail was rubbing his feet on the ground, that is actually taught. It was taught to us in Islamiyat in class 4 or 5 in Pakistan. So that's what my question was.
I mean, what I'm saying is that this is taught to every single person, not just in Pakistan, but all over the world. Every Muslim knows this story because, you see, that is how it has been transmitted to us. But as I said, that it does not stand test to. I mean, it does not stand up to the test of historical criticism. And I advise you, if you could read some of the things that we have written or spoken, it will let you know. And you know what? You must not get any. I mean, you should not get confused in any way or disconsolated in any way, because you see, the quest for the truth is something that whenever it comes our way, it makes us do this research. And because this research has not been done for centuries, so whatever has been handed down to us has been handed down, I mean, it's the way people have understood it for centuries. So if any critical analysis is attempted on such a translation maybe, or an interpretation, so that critical analysis has to be viewed with a pinch of salt, I would say, and always think that these are critical reevaluations of what we have already thought of.
Dr. Saab, I'm back with my original question. Basically, I wanted to ask if we can judge or see if there is some method to who got favors. And when he talks about, him giving his favor to a particular nation, in present times, we can clearly see that the people of the book are in favor. From a religious point of view, can it be said that now God is favoring them over Muslims because of something they might have done, corrected their ways, and we have fallen out of favor? Definitely that can be seen. Your comment on this, please.
So you see, as far as if you look at history in a way that you look at the progeny of Abraham, for example, the Israelites and the Ishmaelites. So Israelites are the descendants of Jacob and Isaac, and the Ishmaelites are the descendants of the Prophet Ishmael. So if you look at both of them, you'll find that both of them have actually fallen out of God's favor, and the Ishmaelites, they themselves are being they are receiving a drubbing. And similar is the case with the other part, which are the Israelites. So remember, they are subservient to the Christians. So basically, according to the Quran, it is happening in precisely the same way that it was predicted. That if they hold truth dear to them, and if they are able to stand up for the cause of truth and create justice in their own system, then they will be at the head of all nations. So this promise was made by the progeny of Abraham. Both branches were given this responsibility one by one, and at the end of the day, both fell out. So today, that what you're seeing is not neither the Israelites nor the Ishmaelites finding favor with God. It is basically the followers of Jesus, and of course the Japhites, who are the Gog and Magog. I mean, who are the people who rose out of the third son of Noah. So remember, the Semitic race, which is the race from whom Abraham was born, they have had their share of rise and fall. So if you look at, again, I'll once again refer you to the last book of the Bible, which has very accurately predicted the rise of various nations. According to that book, you'll see that Muslims have already been given this. They have already passed through their rise, and now it is the time for Gog and Magog, who have arisen from the third son of Noah, who's called Japhet in the Bible. And so the Japhites, they are the ones who are now ruling, and they, in accordance with the principle that if you are good in your collective affairs, then that rise is destined for you. So it does seem that now the yellow races, as the Bible calls them, which of course refers to the Chinese and the Mongols, they are now having their share of rise. So if you look at world history, I mean, the stage is set that the Semites and the Hamites, which were the sons of Noah, the Sam and the Ham, so both of them have had their rise, both of them have been given their opportunities, and now it's the turn of the Japhites. So this is what the world stage at the moment looks like.
All right, thank you. Dr. Saab, another question that I had was about the Hadith Jibrail, where when Hazrat Jibrail asks the Prophet about some signs of the end times, one of the signs that the Prophet talks about is that the slave woman will give birth to her master or mistress. And Ghamidi Saab's point of view on this is that he sees this as the end of slavery as sort of like an economic system. But I have thought on this, and don't you think, and this is my question to you, that these particular words of the Prophet now attach very well and more accurately with the idea of surrogacy, where a woman literally is rented, her body is rented to give birth to a child who is literally her master, because the rich people are using female bodies of the poor women to give birth to their children. So don't you think that these particular words of the Prophet about the sign of end times now match the idea of surrogacy a lot better than the end of slavery?
Well, actually, the words are not very appropriate for this. If you have to refer to surrogacy, I think there is some problem with the echo. Let me just. So the word amma, if you look at because the Arabic words are an talid al ammata rabbataha, which means a slave girl will give birth to her mistress. So the word slave girl is not appropriate. I mean, you cannot refer it to a surrogate mother. I mean, she's not a slave to anyone. She's not subservient to anyone. I mean, and surrogacy is not just being carried out amongst poor people. It is something which even the rich do so. So it's not something confined to people who have money and would not like to go through the whole process of birth. So I think that it would be a more stretch of imagination in which if you have to apply it to surrogacy, and it would not seem appropriate to me because of the linguistic application.
Okay. Any other questions? Otherwise, I have a question that I'll ask Dr. Saleem. Okay, so Dr. Saleem, I was looking at the meaning of Islam. Islam means submission and peace. Is that correct?
Yes, correct.
So is the concept, if we look at it from the point of view of kind of all religions or faiths or whatever you want to call it, including Buddhism and Hinduism and Christianity, Judaism, if peace is the end result, I think once we find peace, everything else is kind of falls into place. So is basically life just quest for peace? Is that what Islam is all about? Pinnacle? Is that a pinnacle or a triangle that we kind of move towards as a human race?
So you see, the primary meaning of the word Islam is to submit. Peace is a consequence of that. It's not the primary meaning. The word Islam means to submit, to be obedient, to be acquiescent. That is what is the essence. So submission, of course, means to submit to the will of God, because once you do that, it will give you that peace, it will create that peace. So that is a meaning that is a consequential one. Otherwise, primarily it means to submit to the will of God.
Okay. Okay. Ammar Rasool, yes, please go ahead, ask your question. I'm so glad you're taking use of this time.
Thank you again. Dr. Saab, my question was about the religion of Sabians that the Quran mentions, I think twice at least, when mentioning
Yes.
that these people will get their reward if they fulfill these conditions. My question is, why is there so much confusion and misinformation about what this religion, Sabianism, is? Because if the Quran is mentioning them to the Arabs or whoever the audience is of the Quran, then those people must have been aware of it, but somehow the
Right.
knowledge is lost to us, and there are too many different conjectures about what this religion is and how are these people rightly guided.
Well, you see, the thing is that the Arabs knew them very well, and that is precisely why they are cited. And even if you don't know the exact details about them, where they exist today, and how they have developed in their beliefs, what we have to understand is that the point that the Quran is making here is that these were all sects who believed in monotheism, who believed in one God, and they deviated from that monotheistic practice by becoming deviant monotheists, like the Christians, of course, and like the Jews of Arabia also. And so the thing that the Quran is making, the point that the Quran is making here is that belonging to any sect is not going to not only give you salvation. It's not that you are a Sabian or a Christian or a Jew or even a Muslim, or anyone who has an ascription to a particular clan, that is going to save you on the Day of Judgment. It is basically some other criteria. So there, basically, it's not the history that is being referred to as much as to the fact that whatever religion you belong to, even if you are a monotheistic tradition, even then, unless you adhere to certain other strict conditions, you will not be salvaged. And the second thing, to me, I mean, this is purely my understanding, and I can be wrong, the reason that they have not survived and the reason that there is still a lot of confusion about who they are is that, to the best of my knowledge, they were not given any book. I mean, they did not, at least the book has not survived, and we have not, we don't find any repository of knowledge that we can say that this is their sacred book. And because there is this lack of, because it is non-existent, so I do think that a number of confusions have arisen because that repository that we could have referred to is not there. And currently what they are still a group of people that we know. They live in parts of Syria and Iraq. But I think what they do today is based basically on their oral tradition without a scripture. And that oral tradition is still carrying them on. But as I said, even if we don't have knowledge of them, what we need to understand is that the Arabs to whom they were presented, they were fully aware of them, and it was they who were basically given this example that you call yourself to be the inheritors of Abraham. So that is not going to save you, because lineage is something that is not part of God's scheme of salvation, whether you belong to a Christian or a Jew family or a Muslim family. It's going to be certain other criteria. So these Sabians are mentioned during the course of this conversation.
Okay.
Dr. Saab, can I ask you who these people might have been in your opinion? You've given a very satisfactory answer, a beautiful answer, but I just wanted to push you on.
To be honest, I cannot give you a very satisfactory answer, because you see, as I said, I have also read in various books who they are, and the best that I can remember now is that some of them, they still exist in parts of Iraq and Syria, and they have their own sort of protocols, but I haven't honestly done any detailed research on them. So maybe if you could look up Google Scholar, because Google Scholar is a search engine in which scholarly articles on Sabians must exist. So, and you might also find interesting that Ustaz Hamiduddin Farahi has written a short note on them in his Mufradat al-Quran. You can also look up that note. But that note, which I remember, is basically more of a general note on them, but their own course of history, who they were and how they exist now, As I said, you might find some better answers if you look up Google Scholar. So I hope you know what Google Scholar is.
Was it necessary to define Qadianis as non-Muslims, so as we did some time back?
Yeah. So personally, I am certainly not in favor of this. We have no right to declare people as, we don't have a right to excommunicate them. This happened, of course, 50 years ago, and this happened as an act of parliament in the state of Pakistan. Otherwise, the view that I subscribe to is that anyone who calls himself to be a Muslim, it's sufficient for us to make him a part of the Muslim community. And if he is not a part of Muslim or not a Muslim in a certain sense of the word, or because of certain beliefs that he holds, then this is between him and God, and let God decide that matter in the hereafter. As far as we are concerned, today we cannot call any person who calls himself to be a Muslim and we give this verdict that you are not a Muslim. We don't have the right.
You said that the Hindu scripture also contains reference to the Prophet.
Right.
And earlier you said that basically, if you read the original scripture, it is also a unitary religion. Could it be that their book also was revealed, but we have lost track of when, how, where, and therefore we don't consider them to be following revealed religion?
Yes, that could be one possibility. You see, the Quran itself says, Rusulun lam naqsusum alayhim, that there are certain messengers that we have not related their accounts and anecdotes to you because the Arabs are not aware of them and they could not have been presented as an evidence to them. So remember, basically, the Ad, the Thamud, the nation of Lot, all these nations inhabited that area in which all prophets have generally come. So the messengers that are mentioned in the Quran are because of the fact that the Arabs knew of them because they belonged to that area. So it may well have been that prophets did come, and I do see that Noah's teachings might have found a lot of effect in the original books of Hinduism. The original most is the Ved, and we find a reflection of monotheism precisely for that reason there. But the reason that they are not related to the Arabs is that the Arabs had no knowledge of what was going on beyond their own peninsula. So it may well be that these Hindus, because we know that they started off with a very strong monotheistic tradition, and it is very much later on that they deviated. And I might also let you know that the latest classification of religions, the way people have done this, and scholars of religion, I came about that very recently. So they called Hinduism to be polymorphic monotheism. Polymorphic monotheism, which means that basically it's monotheistic, but then it branches out to polymorphism, which means it has a number of faces, which in other words means that originally it was a monotheistic religion, and then it branched off and had that concept that we call as the Trimurti, or the triumvirate, which they have three gods like Brahma, Krishna, and Vishnu, just like the Christian Trinity. So that does come on much later. But originally, as I said, it may very well be possible that they might, if not a book, then at least a prophet must have been sent to them.
Thank you very much, Dr. Saab. Only a scholar of your stature could give me such a brilliant answer. Thank you.